This college football preview video. Today we're taking a look at another matchup for week one of college football. We'll head to Thursday, August 29th, the kickoff day. It's Georgia Tech, it's Clemson in an ACC matchup to get the season rolling. Clemson obviously high hopes after last year's national title, looking for yet another one coming this year. They are the favorite to win the national title currently. And look, we all know why. Trevor Lawrence, who – look, I saw in First Take this morning, will Trevor Lawrence be the greatest quarterback in college football history? Wild. However, kid looked unbelievable in year one. You'd have to figure a big-time bounce back and continued hot play will continue for Trevor Lawrence this year. We got an interesting game in week one as you host the Yellow Jackets at Georgia Tech. We got Joe Duffy here continuing to do some videos with us. You can find Joe Duffy on Twitter at Offshore Insider. Joe, Georgia Tech and Clemson. Clemson laid a big number here, 36.5. I've talked about this game on some of the various things that I do. I've talked about this game, and my first glance at it when it was at 35 was I think that's too many points for Georgia Tech. I mean, I know Georgia Tech's not a great football team. I know they have a new coach. I know they're running a new offense, and they have a quarterback that's off an injury. But I felt like this is the kind of line you'd give to, like, you know, a non-Power 5 team. So let's say you're playing Tulane or Georgia Southern or somebody like that. I felt like giving 5 touchdowns to a team like Georgia Tech was a bit much. You also look at what Georgia Tech is coming back. I like Jeff Collins. Thought he did a great job at Temple University. He's a good defensive coach. And I think one of the strengths of this team is going to be their secondary. They have a guy named Tariq Carpenter in their back end, terrific tackler, a good corner in general. I think that the bedrock of this defense is going to be in the secondary. Look, I'm not going to say Georgia Tech has any chance of being within 3 touchdowns or even 4 touchdowns, but when I first looked at this game, to me, it seemed like a 41-13 type of game. We know how good Clemson is. We know the players they're bringing back. We know that they're bringing back Trevor Lawrence. What are your thoughts on this game, Joe, from your standpoint? You got Clemson 36.5 total, 59.5.
Yeah, well, Jeff, if I disagreed with anything you said, I'd be happy to do it. But no, I pretty much do agree with just about everything that you did say. And really, you know, the comment that you made at the top of this report, that's one of the very few things that worries me as far as Trevor Lawrence. Could he become the greatest college quarterback in history? You know, you almost worry if Dabo's going to say, we want to get, you know, some style points, not for the pollsters, but for the Heisman Trophy voters and pad his numbers. But I don't really think that's what Dabo's worried about. And I think really Trevor Lawrence is a lot more worried about, will he become one of the great NFL quarterbacks of all time? Obviously, he's got everything that the scouts love, that size, that arm, the ability to stay in the pocket and what have you. So I don't really worry about necessarily Clemson trying to get those extra yards for Trevor Lawrence. But everything you said is correct. One more legitimate worry is the fact that they're going from the Georgia Tech's going to go from the triple option offense to a more traditional one. Of course, the personnel that Collins inherits was really built for that triple option. So there is going to be a learning curve. But again, gets back to what I said on another video we did. I like the element of surprise and that humongous point spread. And while everybody rightfully talks about how incredibly good Clemson's offense is, they do have some vulnerabilities on defense. And I do think that Georgia Tech, you know, especially at the end, you can understand where they're going to try to, you know, continue to build their new offense. And Georgia Tech, this game seems to be, if anything, where Georgia Tech, at the worst possible scenario, could backdoor it, because, you know, they're going to scratch all the way until the end if Clemson winds up emptying their benches. And, you know, as you were saying, the line keeps going up. I call it the psychological juice. People will say all the time, if I'm going to bet this game, I'd rather lose with Clemson than lose with Georgia Tech. You know, it hurts losing, betting against a team of Clemson's quality. But I think that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You got to listen to yourself. In reality, because the public loves betting on Clemson, fears betting against them, you're always going to get extra points when you have a mismatch. Maybe when they play a real game, not necessarily you're going to be getting a bunch of extra points. But in a mismatch like this, take advantage of the fact that you're going to get some extra points. And like I said, I think if anything, maybe even Tech will get a late touchdown to get inside the back door.
Yeah, I think in games like this, also, considering you mentioned the style points, we know Clemson. Look, do they need style points?
Yeah.
No. I mean, they're
Right.
going to win games, and this game isn't going to be ever in doubt.
Yeah.
I think first half's interesting here, but then I also look at it. I think the big concern of why this line is so high is obviously you mentioned, Joe, the personnel. Georgia Tech running a new offense. They're running something that's totally kind of off from what they've always ran, and their quarterback and whatever the running backs that they have. These are also receivers that are going to have to now catch the ball a little bit more frequently. I'll be honest and I'll be completely transparent. I am not betting this game. It's not something I'll be involved with. I kind of think kind of early, I kind of had some interest in Georgia Tech. And I think they can backdoor. I also think the first half has some interest. I mean, you're getting 23.5 here. 28-7 is a winner. So, I think if you can look at something like that, just hoping that Georgia Tech can punch one in, maybe they get a big kick return or something like that. And maybe Clemson comes in a little bit too high. There are a lot of things that they're going to have to obviously, come out and make happen. And they have a lot of pressure on them after a big season. But, also a defense that lost a lot of great players last year. So at the end of the day, this isn't a game I'll be on. I kind of like the other game we talked about a little bit more. But, Joe, as always, great stuff. These are two games Joe had interest in talking about, so I would definitely take his opinion highly in these two matchups. Joe, before we let you go, we'll get at you next week. Where can people find you, and what do you have going on?
Yeah, at offshoreinsiders.com. I already have, I think, about 5 or 6 plays up for this weekend, going from Thursday through Monday, and possibly add some more. And believe it or not, preseason football has always been kind to me. Even week 4, I am a systems guy when it comes to preseason football. And I know there are some systems that tells us, when people are going to overreact, underreact to what's happened so far. So visit me at offshoreinsiders.com, and we're still doing baseball on a daily basis.
Awesome, Joe. Look forward to talking to you next week. We'll be getting into week 2. We'll go through a couple more games. Thanks as always for coming on. We'll see you next week.
You're the best, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.